connections. And it's designed, this particular one, around onboarding, resolutions and ROI. It's intended that you feel like you're going through the process as a new starter would experience it. This would be an organization for which you work with or within, wanting to have a bigger impact with their onboarding process. And after this session, you would say, I like the way that sounds and looks. The new starter is activated sooner. So that means they're more performant quicker. So it's not about waiting 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months. It's actually within the first hour. The second point is around how many insights and opportunities that they generate. We assume that they've come into the organization with some knowledge and experience. They've not come in with a blank pad. So we're interested in what they think. We respect their opinion and we want to encourage it. And that's the second ROI point, that you're going to get some real opportunities and ideas to follow through with. And the third thing is, once that employee is activated, they are going to be a more effective learner. They're going to be more effective as a change practitioner. Kick us off. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. So the best thing to do is for us to get our feet wet. You know, I'm the onboarding lead and specialist. That I've got my partner Tunchin here in the room as well. On the board, you can see that in the top right hand corner, Tunchin and I have positioned ourselves there. But just engage with this business, this probably profit making business. And what I'd like you to do first of all is to think about if you were joining that organization, and from that paragraph that you had on that document, look in the center top of your big picture board. You will find a slightly soft green rectangle, and in it it's got the word purpose. Lovely, thank you for that enlargement, Martin. And it's got what is the business here for and purpose. So
design and sell technical content and solutions.
Yes, that's lovely, thank you. And that's been picked up, and I think Martin's popping that in for us now. So that's very much the focus of the business. That is what it's here to do. Wonderful, thank you for that. Perfect. And
sorry, I was going to say what Robin said very eloquently.
That's easy to say now, Sue, isn't it?
Oh, that's lovely. Super.
I was just going to add that it's global, so it's a global interest.
Thank you, Jenny. Yes, it's a global interest organisation without a shadow of a doubt. In fact, I guess there we already start to bring in this notion of the focus on the customer. The customer is globally set, globally positioned. So we have to start.
A bit of Twitch.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. Yes, we've got to think in that particular big picture. Sorry, pun, linking it back to what we are and what we do. But you've certainly got to be thinking in that big picture way. In that second paragraph, we've also got this notion of managed to kind of tackle all that this world is throwing at us at the moment, and there is growth. But there's a huge problem in terms of their recruitment. They're having to be much more discerning about who they are recruiting, because the market is fairly flooded with would-be employees. But what does it say in that paragraph? What are the issues in terms of the employees?
People don't stick around.
They're just not staying. Yeah, retention, they're just not staying. And from what you are seeing, what is the problem with their current onboarding process?
Well, they're leaving it too long before they
too long,
right.
Too late.
Too long, too late. So listen to what Martin said. On day one, as soon as you get your staff members through the door, you don't have to wait till you've got half a dozen, 12 new starters. Where you are the manager, you might pick up this picture board, sit down with your new starter and start talking with them about what their job role is and its interrelationship with the rest of the business, and doing it in a very pictorial, visual way, because we could bury these poor new recruits in all the manuals that we've got, and in fact in all the job descriptions, etc. But are people going to read it? And even if they do read it, do they actually understand how the one bit connects with the other? And I think this is where the power of this visual begins to come in terms of facilitating that discussion, so you no longer have to wait for it. Right, so I'm already seeing some activity on the board that's fantastic. I can now see the marketing team leader has been lobbed into the marketing box. I can see Alex and Sue are in customer care. I can see Jenny is in delivery. So any one of you, I would, if any one of you would start reflecting openly and aloud from what you see in my very, very short pen picture. What do you think some of the challenges are, and also relate it to how long you have been in that role? So if you have been in that role, for instance, just for 2 weeks, do you already have any thoughts going through your head now that you see this picture about who you ought to be interrelating to and who you want your next conversation to be with in the organization, and why?
I'm only going to step in really quickly because I'm the 2-month new
Yeah.
recruit contact centre,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of, I'm very excited about the new role, and it's all about me, and what I can add value to.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I stepped in really quickly.
Right.
Okay. So I put an arrow to Alex. Ooh.
Perfect.
Make this thing work.
Ooh. Can you all see what I'm doing? Can you see I've moved?
Yeah.
How cool's that? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Cam. So that's lovely. That's lovely. So I've already got this sense of movement in there. Imagine you were using this in your own organization, then either you would collectively be using the digital kit, or you physically could, 2, 3, 4, how many of you, be sitting around a table, literally drawing on this. So again, you wouldn't get perhaps any of that hesitation and that unfamiliarity that some of you might be experiencing right now. So for the moment, if I can just use a phrase, hold the faith on that. I think, you know, there is a way through that for you. Pick up and move that, or create me another one, if you will, and pop it in customer care, because that might be
That's how it
something.
works.
Ah, brilliant. We've seen the lights. Fantastic, Chris. Brilliant. I saw and got that. Fabulous. And so actually now you too would very much be owning the fact that you've got a challenge, you've charted it, and actually you might be doing that in real time in front of others who are also working in marketing. I'm now gonna kind of do an off script thing, and I'm gonna go, there might come a point, given what you have just said about adding value and going off script, that you might like to talk to Robin, the marketing team leader. Could that be the case, Sue? And Robin, would you like to come in with your marketing team leader hat on, please, and reflect on the pen picture description I've given there and what you see as some of the opportunities or challenges you're facing? Share with us.
Yeah, well, I think we've got loads of opportunities here. So I've got a great marketing assistant working underneath me. He's very, very bright, very switched on. He's already left.
He's already left. That's how good he is. Yeah.
He's gone before he even started talking.
He's obviously a self-motivated individual.
He's gone to make my tea. I'm not sure which it is.
He's gone for the sherry.
Yeah, you'll need it working for me. So probably feeling a little bit missing perhaps connection between the marketing and the delivery piece.
Okay.
Right. I think having a small team, time to freshen up the content, so that probably the key challenge is really the size of the team and getting it strong enough to be able to deliver what it needs to deliver.
Yeah.
And also the question might be about actually the strength of the sales unit, or whether it's a very passive sales unit and just waiting for stuff to fall on its fall at its lap.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So who would you, in an ideal world, next like to have a conversation with to try and move some of this forward?
Probably the operations manager.
Right, who actually is this unallocated role? Yes, absolutely, they are. I don't know whether I could invite somebody to be the operations manager.
I do think, Robin, that's an interesting actual real life situation where the person that you actually need to speak to is either missing or elusive or kind of not within your line of communication.
I think he's in isolation at the moment.
Or that.
Or that.
We can blame COVID for everything.
Can I ask a silly question?
You could speak to me because I was in that role until recently.
Okay.
I just said you could maybe speak to me because the operations director has been recently promoted out of the operations manager role.
Very good. Very good. Absolutely. So what about given that you've just made that transition, so actually you've done almost another internal onboarding yourself, really. You're maybe seeing things differently now. And so what sorts of conversation pieces might be helpful for you and Robin to have in this context, do you think? Again, there's no right or wrong, so kind of just go with it, folks.
Yeah. So going off the script, as it were.
Good. Yeah, good.
So I seem to be the longest serving individual, and I'm very passionate about keeping probably and I've been there since it was started, so I'm probably quite passionate about keeping the way that, it says values integrity of the reason behind it existing. But obviously there's some difference between that and the new people coming in. So I think there's definitely some comms that needs to get done between myself and hashtag not just young people, but anybody new that's in their business to sort of understand the differences. And obviously by speaking to the marketing team leader, they could probably help with comms or just give another view on it, because
perfect. That's lovely. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. And Reg, you had another question, I think, for clarification or comment.
Yeah, just conceptual. Let's be talking about eventually return on investment. Where does our friends in finance fit? Presumably under management and admin.
Lovely.
And I'm thinking, why is there no one there?
Perfect. Wonderful. So in fact, well, I think your observation is wonderful. And I think the power of this as a board.
I'm just biased.
No. The power of this as a board is that management and admin for me needs to be the support that enables all of the rest of the stuff that we're seeing in the middle to happen in order to meet the outcome of the ultimate purpose. Now, for me, therefore, that management and admin has a very strong link with measures. So actually, Martin, if you could just pull up a measures board and a measures symbol for me, if you would, that would be fantastic. So what's being measured? Now, we could actually put lots of measure symbols in all sorts of places on the board in management and admin, because that often does have that overview and therefore is actually capturing all of that measurement and data. But one of the problems for me about measurement is if the rest of the organization only sees measurement as being the baby of management and admin, nobody takes responsibility for it. Nobody understands why we are measuring, what we are measuring, and its connection with the grander purpose and direction of the organization. So I personally love the fact that management and admin sit at the bottom of the board, actually, but that it's the other symbols that somehow provide the glue that keep all of this together. Do you want to shoot me down in flames, Reg? Do you want to comment? Do you want to add to that?
No. I would say at the end of the day, like most organizations, it is there to inform and correct where you're going off course in terms of productivity.
Lovely. Inform, enable better decision making within. And for me as well, I mean, in terms of this is a bit of a toe in the water around onboarding, then in the 6 characters that we've got in front of us, we've got some who are very new and just glad to have a job. I think that's a phrase that kind of might fit with one of them. Others very new and excited, others who have moved internally. Now, I think that this demonstrates nicely that by bringing a group of people together under the auspices of onboarding, people actually engage and interact with each other differently and understand the impact that we each have on each other's roles and the overall purpose of the organization. And therefore, for me, some absolutely fantastic and so I think that a board like this really stops organizations or helps prevent organizations from seeing onboarding as getting a group of raw recruits together and only onboarding them in and between themselves, and instead exposing them and exposing the business already to their observations, their feelings of challenge, their feelings of excitement, that then feeds for me back into the notion of we are here to help this organization perform and perform better. So that,
I think I'm pretty great, to be honest, coming out of university. And
yeah.
I seem to have been plunged into a situation that has rather dampened my enthusiasm and exposed my naivety.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you've got to find out what you don't know before you can learn.
And although I realised I'm not impressed with the way the marketing team is presenting the company.
Lovely.
So I think to myself, well, I know better, but I don't really know how to improve it.
Oh, that's beautifully said, Chris. Absolutely.
And I can see the size of it, but I'm also conscious that my education has given me the knowledge to at least say that I think from an outside perspective, albeit a young one, that we don't have any good messaging going on, or at least enough good messaging going on. So I think the marketing team leader will be in my sights, provided I can, get up the courage to speak to them.
That's lovely. But I also liked your reference to the fact that you in this role have come out of university with confidence in so much of what you've done. You've undoubtedly been recruited for that the organization wants to maximize, but this organization is already, although you're only 2 weeks in, if they don't tap that, if they don't enable you to do that greater learning and learn from you, you are one of the key ones they are likely to lose within this first 6 months.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I could well be off. I'll be it from I'm wasted here, or a bit, also a little bit of I'm daunted as well by the fact that it feels like there's a lot on my shoulders because I'm only seeing disappointment.
Yes. Yeah, that is beautifully put. Absolutely beautifully put. Yeah, fantastic.
So I don't think I've got the authority to go and speak to anybody else but my immediate team leader.
Oh, right. Okay. Well,
do I?
What does anybody else think?
You've got the right to talk to anybody you want to.
Yeah. I think he has as well. Yeah.
Even though there's no immediate chain of command that I have to abide by.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a daunting prospect to put yourself out there and challenge what's already in the organisation. You're leaving yourself quite vulnerable. Even you've kind of got that. Yeah.
That it'll probably, that conversation would go around that particular recruitment cohort.
Yeah.
I think you've been chatting to me because I sound fairly despondent in my new role.
We'll go out for coffee and we
you
can't.
Do.
I think we've been complaining already, and when you started.
And that's so interesting, isn't it? If it's a bad experience so early on within an organisation, how it can breed and feed other people.
Well, the first impression is I spoke over you. I apologise. The first impression is so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. And organizations need hierarchies in the sense of decision-making levels that provide protections through organizations. Yes, I think that's absolutely right. But they are bad things if they then stick people in silos so that people don't see the potential for interconnectivity. I think one of the potentially good things about this as a board, which is why I threw it back open to the room, Chris, is it's that challenge of if you get a group of people some of whom have been around for, you know, for 8 years. We've got one here for that, and some of who's just walked through the door. It's about trying to break down some of those barriers so that the organization is already working then through another of the big pic lenses, which is the big picture of change. So we're actually trying to change the way we think and we do. And let's face it, there has never been a time like the last year when we have all, as organizations and individuals, had to change. And I think that this, I'm probably about to kind of get ready to hand back over to Martin because I'm conscious of our time. But I think that the kind of some of the strap lines around Big Pic is that it's about enabling a damned good conversation. And I think that whether we're talking through an onboarding lens or a change lens or a performance lens, that what this visual does is it creates a platform for that damned good conversation that kind of semi-removes our hats and our powers, the powers that go with it, if we can be brave and bold enough to allow the board to give us, the security through which to do that.
Order. Difficult conversations. I think you were saying, Chris, there, you want a difficult conversation. What I observe is it's easier to send a difficult conversation via a prop or an inanimate route.
Very
because
good.
It's easier to do that via than point directly. So I'm not going to dwell on these. If you hear anything you like, I will unpack them and elaborate at a different time. I've got a list of them. Notice the gaps on the board. Some of the areas are populated, some are not. The gaps really help. White space is really interesting because we've not gone to those areas. We've not touched some of the symbols. Some of those other symbols, if we had time, would enrich the conversation around technology, processes. We've done a bit of measures, but we haven't really touched on customer. So imagine the permutations, draw people in on the simplicity, and then layer it on by the connections between symbols and different parts of the board. Notice how the conversation has ebbed and flowed. Notice how it speeds up and slows down. As people become more familiar in the first hour or so, that speed takes off and you start to make connections because people find their feet, and that's happening in the first couple of hours. So there's something about the velocity of ideas, and I'm going to link that into return on investment in a minute. Self-interest, Reg, I love that. Not apologizing for it. Reg made a point that he's in management and admin as finance. He's looking across. We're all driven in one respect by that behavior. And what Big Picture allows you to do is to give your point of perspective from your position looking out, and everyone's big picture will be different. What's interesting is when you use a board like me behind me, or you take everybody's individual boards and feed it into a theme or a ground truth that everybody can sign up to, then they've both had their own say and they feel they're part of the bigger picture with regard to the organization. Notice how at times it's been a bit uncomfortable when those pauses happen, people just finding their way. I personally would prefer that to happen earlier than later, overcome that. And as Chris did then, he found his feet and he started elaborating and doing what I call sharing useful truths. We see that all the time. It's the gems that come out when you give people something, a way to express themselves. And notice the way the connections go from one side of the board to the other. The link between, the almost surprising link between marketing and operations, or as we've got it, delivery. Imagine partners and suppliers linking with customer care, marketing linking with management, and we haven't even touched on sales. And I know this is set up for a business, but if you're an organization such as third sector or government, then these patterns, as we were discussing earlier, Jenny, on LinkedIn, on the comments, the patterns translate, and that's why it's intended to be drawn and added to over the top. So you adopt the framework as works for your organization, both in the physical prop, the physical kit, but also the digital kit encourages that. So there's a level of grayness or washed outness to the template, which you adopt over the top. It's really yours. And I think I loved the moment earlier when, Chris, I don't know how, I loved your kind of a genuine surprise when I think you said, oh, that's how it works. And I wasn't quite sure what you saw, but maybe it was the point at which you realized you could do it yourself or drag on symbols yourself, that is encouraged. It's not intended to be command and control, top down. So just going into my closing, those are some of the themes that I see in the room all the time, and we've seen some of them today. Remember what I said earlier about throwing out, or looking at the fact it's not top down, it's very much bottom up. It's very much about shifting responsibility to the individual. It's about encouraging curiosity and accountability. We've given everybody the chance to have their say, and if we had a bit more time, and if we've spent more time familiarizing ourselves with the symbols we've not really talked about today, that would ramp up and start happening more and more. Clearly a two-way dialogue, supporting engagement, enabling staff to contribute to the business purpose, which is where we started, and that's what you've hired them for, to come in, offer their view. And that's a bit of a taste of an insight into it. I want to remind you about the ROI point, which is make your own judgment, and it's a rhetorical question and statement. And in the feedback I ask for, please comment on how well this would score against the 3 promises on return on investment. No need to answer this unless you want to shout it out. But the fact is, would this bring forward the point at which a new starter would become active and activated? I'm going to leave that hanging. Number 2, because of the way we're generating, and I'm just going to share my screen quickly, would it generate, when we drag on these opportunities and then we look in the top right up here, this is where we put the opportunities. So this is where we've got emergent thinking, and this is how we bring it back. So take your own judgment. We haven't fully explored this today, but the opportunity is one of the symbols we bring on. So after an hour with new starters, we would say, right, new starters, here are 3 opportunity symbols each. You must have come up with some ideas, land them on the board, and let's see what they are. So you've got at least 3. You could probably generate 5 or 10 opportunities per new starter in the first 2 hours. So that's your second ROI point. Take a judgment as to how quickly those ideas would come out. And those insights are for the benefit of the whole organization. And then thirdly, once that new starter is activated, and we might have tapped into this a little bit with the role playing that Andrea's led us through today, how would you then feel, because you've been asked about your view and you've taken an active part in onboarding, how likely is it, or what kind of consequences is that going to have on your behavior when you go into a change arena, or maybe you go into your first performance conversation? And maybe Tunch, you could comment on that, the fact the activation of that colleague has happened. What is the connection into performance, just briefly, from your perspective?
Well, I was making notes here from the time when Robin started playing the role of marketing team leader. And I think Chris hit the nail on the head there, because from my point of view, performance starts from the day the colleague gets onboarded. And unfortunately, we are seeing an onboarding disaster here, really, with this example. I believe the marketing team leader, operations managers, and the company overall is quite living in a dream world. They, one of the key comments there in the briefing is that the company thinks we provided them with every tool and everything, for them, but why are they still not buying into it? And Chris just mentioned that as well, because these guys are left on their own devices. It makes me think of an example. It's like an 18-year-old who's got really high motivations to start driving, and his father goes out and buys him a brand new Ferrari and gives him the keys and says, go drive it and go win the races and everything. But this guy hasn't had any driving lessons, hasn't got a clue about how to drive that car. He doesn't know anything about the functionalities of that car, but he's got the car, and his father thinks, you know what, I've done everything I can for as a father.
Yeah. The father wonders why the kid hasn't already worked out what to do within half an hour.
Yeah.
Because he knows, and he has
either that kid's going to jump in that car and smash it onto the wall and kill himself, and there's not going to be any return of investment there. Or that he's not going to be able to manage it. The car is just going to sit there, and the kid will be just looking at it. So really, I think that's the main problem there. The team leader really needs to realize, and the company needs to realize, team leader got a new, brand new all singing and dancing assistant, but how long is he going to be singing and dancing? Because he's running out of that charge, of that motivation. Once that runs out, obviously that's the answer to our question. I think that they start leaving, and you got to start recruiting again.
And that's where the connections with the offer come. So from onboarding to performance and to change.